Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're trying something I think is one of the most ambitious ideas we've
It's
had.
a big one.
We're taking the philosophy of Ansel Adams, this meticulous, intentional, frankly slow-moving giant of photography.
A man with an 8x10 view camera in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. And we are going to try and translate that entire approach into a practical, actionable workflow for you using your Pixel phone.
It sounds kind of ridiculous when you say it out loud, doesn't it? Adams would, load maybe 5 sheets of film for an entire day.
If he was lucky, a handful of photos, max.
And here we are with this device in our pockets that Adams would have just called sorcery. But the challenge, and this is the core of it, it isn't the technology, it's the mindset.
That's it. Our mission here is to completely ignore the gear for a minute. Adams himself gave us the quote, "The single most important component of a camera is the 12 inches behind it,
Your brain.
your eye and your mind." And this deep dive is all about training those 12 inches. We want to help you go from being a passive collector of, visual proof that I was here, snapshot, to an active translator of a feeling.
Right. So to do that, we're going to walk you through a 4-part system. First, we have to tackle the Adams mindset, which is all about pre-visualization.
Seeing the photo before you take it?
Then, composition, which he saw as the architecture of the frame. Third, we'll break down the zone system, which sounds intimidating, but we'll turn it into simple tapping and swiping on your pixel.
And finally, the digital darkroom, using something like Snapseed to sculpt light the way he did.
It's a whole workflow.
I think we have to start with that philosophy because that is honestly the toughest part for us modern photographers, just slowing down.
It is. And Adams, he didn't start with those huge cameras. He started with a simple Kodak Brownie camera in Yosemite. He was only 14.
But his real background, the thing that shaped him, was that he was a trained classical pianist.
And that music analogy is absolutely key to his whole approach. He saw the negative, for us, that's the unprocessed raw file, as the musical score.
Okay, so it has all the notes, all the data.
Exactly. But the final print, that was the performance. It was full of interpretation, his feeling, the drama. It wasn't just a sterile record of what was there.
Which brings us to that famous idea, you don't take a photograph, you make it. He wasn't interested in just proving he was there.
No, it was all expression. He wanted to translate that huge, grand feeling of a landscape, the light, the tone, so that other people could not just see it, but actually feel it.
And to do that, you need this central concept he developed, pre-visualization.
Pre-visualization, yeah.
Yeah.
He literally trained himself to stand in front of a world full of color and see, in his mind's eye, the final black and white print. He knew exactly where the tones would fall, what the mood would be.
He saw the end product before he even touched the shutter.
That's it.
So here's the hard part. We pull our phones out in like 2 seconds. How do we apply that discipline? We need what you call the act of seeing.
And it really starts with discipline. So you
Mhm.
find a scene, right? Let's say it's some dramatic light on a city street corner. The urge is to just raise the phone.
Immediately.
Don't lower it. Just take a breath. Look, notice the light, the shapes, where the shadows are falling. And then assign one single word to the feeling you want the final image to have.
One word. Like what?
Is it quiet? Is it luminous? Maybe it's heavy or bold. That word becomes your guide. It's your anchor for pre-visualization.
And this is where my modern attention span just, starts screaming. You talk about the discipline of attention. Adams would wait for hours.
For a cloud to move or a shadow to hit the right spot, yeah.
And we're supposed to apply that in a world where we check our phones every 5 minutes.
You're fighting that urge to just capture and move on.
Yeah.
The discipline is to force yourself to just spend 10 minutes looking at a subject before you even think about taking the picture.
10 minutes. That's probably 9.5 minutes longer than most people spend.
I know. But in that time, you start noticing the subtleties. You see how a shadow crawls across the pavement, or how light glints off one specific window.
You start to see the picture that isn't obvious.
That's right. And by the time those 10 minutes are up, you know the one perfect photograph you want to make.
Yeah.
You're not hunting anymore. You're executing a plan.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've got the feeling, the intention. Now, how do we actually map that onto the frame? This moves us from the mindset to the architecture of composition.
Composition is how you structure that feeling. It's the grammar. And we all start with the rule of thirds. Your Pixel makes that so easy with the 3x3 grid overlay.
It's a great tool to guide us away from that, static, boring, centered snapshot. You put things on the lines, on the intersections, and it creates tension and movement.
Exactly. But it's so important to remember it's a guide, not a cage. Adams didn't just slavishly follow rules. He would center things deliberately if he wanted this feeling of immense weight and presence.
Like his photograph monolith, the face of Half Dome. That thing is just massive in the frame.
It's huge, but it's still slightly off-center, balanced by the sky and rock around it. The real goal is just awareness. You need to be aware of where you're guiding the viewer's eye.
Okay, so let's get into that deeper architecture. How do we deliberately use lines to build the picture?
We use leading lines. Our eyes are just naturally drawn to lines. A river, a road, a fence, even a long shadow. Adams was a master of this.
You can see it in the Tetons in the Snake River.
The perfect example. That river is like a silver ribbon that just pulls your eye from the very bottom of the frame through the middle and all the way back to those towering mountains.
So when we're holding our phone, we need to be actively looking for those lines. A curb on a street maybe, or shadows on a floor, and use them to pull the viewer into the story.
That's it. And then you have to think about balance and asymmetry. A strong image has a balanced visual gravity. If you have a really heavy subject on one side, say a big old tree on the right.
You need something on the left to balance it out.
Right, but it doesn't have to be another big thing. It could be empty space, negative space,
Yeah.
or a small, bright element. The goal is harmony, not perfect, boring equality.
I always forget how important the emptiness, the negative space is.
Oh, it's crucial. And that connects right to the power of simplicity. The strongest composition is often about what you exclude.
Especially on a small phone screen, visual clutter just kills an image.
It's deadly. You have to strip away every distraction, use natural frames, a doorway, a canopy of trees, to focus the attention only on the subject that matches your pre-visualized word. If your word was quiet, then every element that screams loud has to go.
That focus on the essentials is a perfect transition into Adams's most technical idea, the zone system. Now, this is the part that sounds really intimidating.
It does, but it's really just a roadmap for mastering light.
Mhm.
If we connect it to what we've been talking about, the zone system is just a disciplined way of seeing and controlling light.
Okay, break it down.
It divides the entire tonal scale from pure black, which is zone 0, to pure white, zone X, into 11 steps. And the most important one is right in the middle. Zone V, middle gray.
And that's the 18% gray that our camera is always automatically trying to find, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
That's why when you point your phone at something really bright, like snow, the picture comes out looking muddy and gray. The camera thinks, whoa, that's too bright. I need to darken it down to zone V.
So Adams's big idea was to take control of that.
He decided, before pressing the shutter, where each part of the scene should fall on that scale. He wasn't just letting the camera guess. He'd say, I want this textured shadow to be a zone 3. I want the bright cloud to be a zone 7.
So zone 2 and 3 are for those rich, dark shadows that still have detail.
Yep. And zone 7 and 8 are for bright whites, like clouds or snow, where you can still see the texture.
Okay, this is the critical translation. How do we do that when all we have is a screen and our finger? How do I tell my Pixel I want this shadow to be zone 3?
You do it with tapping and swiping. This is your digital zone system. Your camera is always looking for zone V. So to place your tones with intent, you tap on the specific area you want to control.
So if I tap on a bright highlight, like the sky,
The whole scene will get darker. It's preserving the detail in that sky, pushing it down towards that zone 7 or 8.
and if I tap on a deep shadow, the whole scene brightens up, lifting that area towards zone 3 or 4. That tap is my spot meter.
Exactly. But there's one more step. Manual adjustment. After you tap, you can swipe your finger up or down on the screen. You'll see that little brightness slider. That's you adjusting the exposure value, the EV.
Ah, so that's my fine-tuning control.
That's you telling the camera, I know you want this to be middle gray, but I want it to be intentionally 1 or 2 zones brighter or darker than you think it should be.
Okay, let's use that snow example because this is where the Adams mindset really comes in. I want the snow to look bright and luminous but still hold texture. So that's zone 7.
Right. So the key is an intentional offset. Your camera sees bright snow and wants to make it zone V, middle gray. To make it correctly bright, zone 7, you need to intentionally add about 2 stops of exposure.
So I tap on the snow to meter, then I'd swipe up until that EV slider says something around +2.
You got it. You are consciously using the zone system to override the camera's neutral and often wrong interpretation.
That's fantastic. It turns a simple swipe into a really calculated Adams-level decision. Now, what about his philosophy on shadows? He wasn't afraid of the dark.
Not at all. He was famous for letting shadows fall dark down to zone 2 or 3, which adds so much mystery and depth. You look at Moonrise Hernandez, that sky is almost black. but the crosses on the hillside just glow.
He used pure black to make the highlights sing.
Yes. Resist that modern urge to just crank up the shadows slider until the whole image is flat. Contrast is drama.
Speaking of clarity, Adams was known for that f/64 look maximum depth of field, where everything from the foreground to the mountains is tack sharp. That's tough with a big camera, but we have an advantage here, right?
A huge advantage. Because the pixel sensor is so physically small, it naturally gives you deep focus. It's like a built-in clarity superpower.
So how do we maximize it?
Easy. Use the wide lens and then deliberately tap to focus about 1/3 of the way into the scene. That's a super simple way to use hyperfocal distance. It just means you're maximizing the zone of sharpness from near to far.
Focus 1/3 in. Got it. That makes a technical term feel much less scary.
Exactly. And you should only really use portrait mode when your story is about intimacy and isolation, which is pretty rare for that Grand Adams landscape style.
Okay. So we've pre-visualized the mood, we've composed the architecture, and we've controlled the light. Now it's time for the final stage, the performance, the digital darkroom.
And this all has to start with making sure we have the highest quality score to work with. That means shooting in RAW.
Right. You have to start with the best possible data. A RAW file, or DNG, is the digital negative. It has all the tonal information. A JPEG has already been compressed and processed.
Information, the highlights and shadows is often clipped, just permanently lost in a JPEG.
So for anyone listening, you have to go into your Pixel camera settings, find the advanced menu, and toggle on RAW plus JPEG control. That unprocessed RAW file is your foundation.
And once we have that file, the process is what I call tonal sculpture. First step for this style is converting to black and white. It's mandatory.
Because it forces you to rely on tone, texture, and form. If an image doesn't work in black and white, the composition was probably never that strong to begin with.
That's a great way to put it. So let's walk through a quick Adams-style workflow in an app like Snapseed.
Okay, what are the key steps after I convert it?
First, convert to black and white, maybe with a neutral filter. Then you go into the tune image adjustments. This is your global work. Adams loved contrast, so don't be shy. Raise that contrast slider, maybe 40 or 50 points.
Okay, punchy.
Then, critically, you use the highlights and shadows sliders to protect the detail that you work so hard to capture with the zone system.
So if I have a scene with bright clouds against dark rock, I want to save that cloud detail. So I drag the highlight slider down, maybe to -20 or -40.
Precisely. And if the shadows are just a little too plugged up, you might lift the shadows slider, but just a tiny bit, carefully, to get them into that textured zone 2, the 3 level.
That's the global refinement. But Adams's real magic, his secret weapon, was dodging and burning.
Selective light control. This is how he guided the viewer's eye and added that palpable drama to his prints.
And how do we do that on a screen? How do we dodge and burn digitally?
In Snapseed, you use the selective tool. You can tap on a very specific small area and adjust only the brightness of that spot.
So to dodge, to lighten, I would tap on my main focal point, a mountain peak, a person's face, and just raise the brightness of that one area to make it pop.
And it will draw the eye right there. And to burn, to darken, you tap on distracting things, and maybe the corners of the frame or a part of the sky that's a bit too bright, and you just lower the brightness there.
Pushing it back into the background.
And you have to remember, every single one of those adjustments needs a purpose. You are sculpting the tones to match the mood you pre-visualized. Editing is interpretation, not just fixing mistakes.
That brings us full circle. What an incredible journey. To take the discipline of a master with a massive camera and translate it into these tools we have in our pockets.
We covered the mindset, the composition, the zone system, the digital darkroom.
And it really shows that the power is in your intention, not your gear.
And the beautiful thing is, your personal Yosemite is everywhere. It could be a line of palm trees, the texture of a wet city street, or just the way the light hits your kitchen table in the morning.
Any ordinary subject can become extraordinary if you approach it with that kind of discipline.
His work always reminds us that a photograph can be so much more. It can be advocacy, it can be a memory, it can even be a prayer.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you pick up your phone? What should you carry into that act of photography?
Well, Adams gave us the definitive final thought on this. He said, "You don't make a photograph just with the camera. You bring to the act of photography all the pictures you have seen, the books you have read, the music you have heard, the people you have loved."
Wow.
So the final challenge isn't whether you can photograph like him. It's whether you're willing to slow down, to see with his kind of depth and carry your whole life experience, that entire reservoir of feeling, into every single frame you make. Go practice that intention.